Hello, my fellow Americans. I'm Bill Lipinski, and next up is my favorite commentator, reporter, my friend Ray Hanania.
And I'm Ray Hanania, and we are here at Two Guys on Politics, two sick guys on politics, coming off of a terrible virus and chest colds and a horrible past 3 weeks. I know we've gotten a lot of emails from people going, "What happened?" I said, "Well, we're taking a little off for the New Year's and the holidays, but it is the new year. It's January 17, 2025. This is season 4, episode 1." And Bill and I are going to be talking about a wide range of things. The Senate hearings on Trump's cabinet appointees, from Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary to Pam Bondi for Attorney General. President Biden's goodbye address, maybe a couple remarks about that. Biden pardoning the largest number of criminals ever of any president versus Trump's expected pardons. A look back at some of the top stories of 2024 and President Trump's plans to annex Greenland and the Panama Canal. Bill, what do you make of? Were you able to watch any of the hearings that they held?
I have watched some of the hearings, yes.
What'd you think of it?
Well, I really thought that the Democrats looked very silly with some of the things that they went after the Trump appointees on. By the same token, it looks like the candidate for Secretary of Defense is going to get through, and I don't really think he's qualified for the job. But I don't have a vote. The senators do have a vote. He seemed to win over all the Republican senators. So to me, looks like he's going to be approved unless in the full Senate, there's enough Republicans that oppose him. What do you think of that appointment?
Well, that one and the others. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, sitting in bed trying to recover from this terrible norovirus that I caught, who knows how, over the past 3 weeks, that America is even more divided today than it was at the height of the Trump administration and at the height of the Biden administration. We are no closer to coming together and being a strong nation. And I'm not saying we're not justified and, democratic and we have the right principles behind us, but this country's in for a big problem, not just because of Trump, but because of the Democrats. And I thought the hearing, I did agree with you that the tone of the questions were so vicious. I mean, for example, it's just so hypocritical to listen to Senator Tim Kaine, you know, harassing Pete Hegseth over allegations of sexual harassment when it was Tim Kaine who defended Bill Clinton, who was one of the most notorious womanizers in the country. Just the amount of hypocrisy, like they don't see their own, and that's worse to me than anything.
Well,
Maybe Hegseth has a problem. Sorry to interrupt you, Bill. Maybe Hegseth does have a problem, but these are not the people who can throw stones at a glass house, and we'll never get any real issues addressed. What'd you think of the Hegseth?
I was just going to say the hypocrisy of the Democrats on these sexual harassment,
Yeah.
sexual issues, when they are the same people who defended Bill Clinton night
Yes.
and day.
Yes.
I mean, it is disgusting, is what it is. It is disgusting that they do not have any principles. Their only principle is take care of their party.
Yes. And I hate him and I love myself. That's the attitude. And I think it's both parties. I'm not going
Oh,
to just say
absolutely.
it's the Democrats, it's the Republicans too, that they both are there. It's all about politics and hypocrisy. Nobody cares about the American people. And the American people don't seem to care because we're taking hallucinogens or something from the politics. We're taking sides. Is there anybody in the middle that can save this country, Bill? Because we're in a lot of trouble, I think, moving forward.
Absolutely. We are in a terrible amount of trouble. And a perfect example, Ray, is uh, Trump's position in regards to the Panama Canal
Yes.
and Greenland. Now, all the Trump haters, the never Trumpers, the middle of the road people who voted for Trump only because they like his tax policy, they're all out against him on these issues. If they would just take an opportunity to study what's really going on here maybe they would change their opinion.
Right.
Let's Greenland, for example. Greenland, we don't want the Russians, we don't want the Chinese taking over Greenland because it has some of the most precious materials any place in the world. Lithium, which is used in our smartphones and everything. There's only two places you can mine that in the entire world. Number one is China. Number two is Greenland. Do we want to give them Greenland also?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think though Trump makes it easy to pick on him.
Oh,
He says,
absolutely.
"Oh, we're just gonna." He makes it sound like we're gonna invade Greenland and take it over. What he
Right.
should have said was, "I'm gonna, as soon as I get into office, we're gonna set up an alliance with Greenland to ensure that they're never taken over by those commie bastards." The Russians or the Chinese. But he doesn't say it. He doesn't say that, even tough words. He makes it sound like he's just going to invade. And I agree about the Panama Canal. We should work up a relationship with Panama where we protect it from the Russians and the communists and the Chinese. But
Now,
the way he presents it, it's like we're ready to go to war to take it over.
absolutely right.
It
Now,
just,
Trump, has said that the Chinese, there's a lot of Chinese communist countries that are running the canal at the present time. Now, I don't doubt that the information he has said that. And if that is true, certainly we want to get rid of those. We cannot have the Panama Canal, the
right,
canal we built.
right,
As Teddy Roosevelt said, he took the Panama Canal and
right.
then built it. All right. Now, if that's true, that's wonderful. Take it, get rid of the Chinese communists there. But I have not been able to find it any place else that has said that the Chinese are running a canal. So I don't know where we're at, but I guess to be on the safe side, we should go in there. We should get rid of the Chinese, but we can work things out with the Panamanians. We don't have
Yes.
to invade. Does Panama have an army?
I, I have no idea. I think
I
we
have no
got rid of
idea.
those
But I
guys in
that's how Trump
Nicaragua, the
Trump.
Nicaraguans. What was the guy's name? Remember the ones that we were trying to take out when Reagan was president?
Oh, yes, yes.
The con-
There
we
Sandinistas,
supported the Contras to get rid of the Sandinistas.
Contras were the good guys.
Yes,
Sandinistas were the commies.
yes, they were. Anything that is in rhymes with communism, we should be against it.
Yeah,
Sadly, we're so divided in this country. I don't even know if we're even worried about the communist threat anymore. We're so worried about politics and propaganda. This whole fight over TikTok. That's another example of how we're told it's to protect us from the communist Chinese, but the fact is, everybody's running to a Chinese alternative social media red note, and which is even more. They take more information than TikTok. The sad thing is, this is about politics and issues and hypocrisy. In my opinion, they want to shut down TikTok because it's been so pro-Palestinian and pro-Arab in the Israel Palestinian conflict. It's the only place you will see videos of Israelis massacring women and children. It's the only place. The U.S. media doesn't cover that war anymore, and they can't wait till the ceasefire takes effect so they can pretend like everything is good. But there's so much hypocrisy, Bill. I'm really depressed. If we take over Greenland, I may move there. Is that a possibility? Because right now I'm thinking about it. But I don't want to run into those actors like Jimmy Kimmel and a couple of them who said they were going to move out of the country if Trump were elected. And I'm still waiting for them to buy their tickets.
I don't know. Can a fellow that has an Arab background, accustomed to living in a tent in the desert, go and live in Greenland? I understand it's rather cold there.
Yeah, listen, Greenland is a beautiful country from what I see. And it probably would be a great idea if we could work out some closer relationship or like a North American NATO alliance here on this side of the continent,
Right.
with
Well,
Greenland and the United States and Canada.
Denmark has said, and Denmark is the one that is governing. They have said already, if Greenland wants to become part of America, fine. If they
Yeah,
want to stay with the Danes, fine. If they want to become independent, fine. The
they don't
Danes are
care.
easy to get along with.
Well, that's I think they were neutral though, weren't they during World War II? I
I,
don't know.
I don't know, Ray. I'm
Yeah,
not.
so
There's
so
enough problems today. I want to go back and rehash World War II.
I know, but we may end up rehashing it or at least going through a World War III because I'm not optimistic about anything in the future. And it's not because I don't like Trump. I'm not optimistic because we don't have one nation. We really do have two nations. We have the Republican nation and we have the Democratic nation. And all we do is get backstabbing from both sides. The hearings, that we just went through, the hypocrisy, we point out with Tim Kaine, just silent about sexual harassment when it comes to his side, but screaming about it when it comes to Trump. And then Adam Schiff, another guy, this guy, he misled the American public and all those falsehoods about the so called Russian file dossier that they had on Trump. It was a complete lie, but nobody held his feet to the fire. So there's no way that I'm going to come out of this and say that the Democrats are right, that Trump's nominees are bad, because we don't know whether they're good or bad. We're just going to have to wait and hope that they do the right thing, I think.
Well, Adam Schiff, I think he's one of the shiftiest people I've ever seen.
He's horrible. I agree
And I
with
do
you.
not believe anything he says.
What happened to the good people in the Democratic side? I mean, I could live with Schumer if he would take a center, middle of the road attitude. I might be able to live with him despite some of his problems in the past. But we don't have a middle of the road person, do we? There's no
Okay.
centrist in this country today, is there?
I know Chuck Schumer very well, and I like Chuck Schumer. But Chuck, truthfully, was a lot more middle of the road before he became
Yes.
the Democratic leader in the Senate. I can
Yes.
understand that somewhat. And there's sometimes he's okay, but sometimes I think he goes a little too far.
Now, I did see some of Biden's farewell address, but
I was,
I didn't watch the whole thing because I fell asleep listening to him. That was the one time Biden didn't sleep, and he probably should have fallen asleep because his words were just so boring. The stories were boring. Nobody held his feet to the fire. But he did say that the one story that came out of his speech was he warned that there's an oligarchy, which is a small group of people that have control over a country or organization, taking over this government. And to me, that's just a transparent attack against Trump, making up something just because you don't like the guy. I'll tell you, the only nice thing that happened this week, sadly, was and I don't mean the passing is a nice thing, but at the funeral of the former president, um, our former president from Georgia, um,
Jimmy
now,
Carter.
Jimmy Carter, thank you. This cold is killing me, Bill. It was nice to see uh, Obama and Trump actually talking to each other.
Yes, it was.
And
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that they have to like each other, but they're supposed to represent us. And we're supposed to be the priority, not them. So it was nice to see them talking and sharing a moment. That moment gave me a little bit of hope. But I'm not very confident that that's going to continue. I think it's going to get worse. And I think Biden is making it worse. The media is making it worse. Biden pardoned and commuted the sentence of more criminals than any past president. 2,500 drug users and people involved in the drug industry. Some of the worst people, and I'll give you a quick rundown just really fast. The Pennsylvania judge, Michael Conanahan, who was convicted in 2011 for profiting off of the detention of children, sending them to prisons where he got kickbacks. These were kids that were punished for years, and he got money, and he was sentenced to 17 years in prison. And Biden just said, he's okay. We'll let him out. Then the CEO of the America Seniors Community CEO, who ripped off thousands and thousands of senior citizens in a $20 million scam. These people, their entire savings were taken, and none of them were compensated the way the Bernie Madoff people have been compensated by the federal government. They have to suffer. And then he commuted the sentences of 37 of 40 federal death row inmates. And the only three he was afraid to commute because he knew the opposition would be so great was the killer in the Tree of Life synagogue shooting, that horrible massacre, the gunman at the Mother Emanuel Church, and the surviving Boston Marathon bomber. He knew that commuting their sentences would be too controversial, so he allowed those three to stand, but he commuted the death sentences of 37 others. This guy, it's just upsetting to me. You know, Biden
You
to
think he
me is
knows what
the.
he's doing?
I think he's being
Well, you
manipulated
he
by
knows what
this.
he's doing.
Trump calls it the swamp, but you and I both know that Washington, D.C. has a bureaucracy that does exist and it takes a while to shift, and change. I think those decisions are made by people around him, and he doesn't have the leadership to do the right thing.
Yep.
It's
But
depressing.
the country is still in very concerning condition to me. Somehow we've got to get some people who are willing to cross the aisle. It was nice that Obama and Trump was talking, but I believe the only wife that didn't show up
Right.
was Michelle Obama.
Right. It was maybe that's why he was allowed to talk to Trump because she wasn't there yelling at him. Probably because you didn't see the Clintons talk. And I think that they even had a deep, ugly expression when Hillary turned around and saw Obama talking to Trump. It looked like she was going to go ballistic for a moment there. Anyway, listen, Jimmy Carter's passing. I know not everybody loved the guy, but he was the first president to bring peace to the Middle East. He's the reason that one Arab country decided to reach out to Israel and make peace. And I think he deserves credit for it. He got beat by a great president, Ronald Reagan, obviously, in part because of the Iranian hostages. They held the hostages the entire time that Carter was president until the election. I think that's when they released the hostages. So we allowed.
Reagan got sworn in, they released him.
Yes, they manipulated our election. Nobody talked about foreign intervention in our election back then. But the one thing about Carter, it wasn't that he, was the greatest president. He had a good heart. He was a Christian who believed in his faith, and he applied his faith to everybody. You didn't have to agree with his politics to say, this is a guy who always wanted to do good for good people.
Yes, yeah. I think he was a poor president because he lacked the will to really push through things he wanted to support. But after he left the presidency, he was one of the greatest human beings we've ever had produced in this country beyond a shadow of a doubt. I first met him back in,
He had to be 79 or no, before Byrne was mayor.
Before he was elected president, 2 years before he was elected president. There was a Democratic mini convention in Kansas City. And I met him. I was impressed with him. And I said he was going to be the next president of the United States. And sure enough, he was.
That had to be like around 1973 or 74, right?
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, he was president until 80, I think, right? So
Yes, so
4
he was
years,
76.
76.
This would have been 74.
Yeah, I think in 74. Now, I got to meet Jimmy Carter thanks to your friend, your former colleague, Marty Russo.
Oh, okay,
When
sure.
Carter was in Chicago to accept the endorsement for president from Jane Byrne.
Okay.
And she said at her big fundraiser, she used Carter to help sell tickets to her fundraiser. And she said, and I was there, if the election were held tonight, I would be voting for Jimmy Carter. Of course, 2 weeks later, when Ted Kennedy, announced that he was going to run, she knew he was going to announce. She flipped and she said, well, 2 weeks ago when I said I would endorse him, I would have, but this is 2 weeks later and I'm going to support Ted Kennedy. So he was like baffled by that lack of, just that dishonesty from the Mayor Byrne. But Carter just he seemed like a good person. You know, when you
We ever
talk to them,
managed to pull off getting two, a Jewish country and a
Arab.
Arab country together.
The only president really got them to he broke the bond. Now we've seen some deals that have come, and I'm not optimistic about the Middle East. Even with this ceasefire bill, it's going to get worse because the Israeli government is the problem, not the Israelis. Most Israelis, I think, are good people. I think Israel and Palestine can exist together, but I think Benjamin Netanyahu is one of the worst extremists, similar to that one guy who we used to have in Chicago. And I'll remember his name. He was with the Jewish Defense League, and I covered his press conference when he went out to Marquette Park to confront the neo Nazis. Frank Collin. I don't know if you remember
Oh,
Frank
yeah,
Collin,
Frank Collin. Yes. Yeah,
and he
I
was
remember.
there. And, you know, these two crazy people going at each other. One of my first news stories that I had to cover at the Daily Southtown Economist newspaper back then. So I'm just not optimistic about the Middle East. And it's just
So
going to get
Frank
worse.
owned office on 71st Street, just south of Marquette Park.
Yep, that's where it was. I remember
Okay.
standing in front of his office, and Frank Collum came out with his brown, his brown uniform, and they gave the Nazi salute. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the Jewish Defense League guy's name, who was later assassinated. But he was a nut job. The two of them, I'm watching them and listening to them, and I'm going, oh my God, I don't want to be in the middle of these two people. Thank God they don't know I'm Arab because I just started in
I
journalism.
somehow wonder how this country has survived all these years with
Yeah.
all the fruitcakes we have running around here.
Yeah, it is terrible. I mean, but I'm going into the Trump administration. Hope he seems like he's calmer than he has been in the past.
Yes.
He seems some of his ideas. The media is still the problem. They continue to spend more time writing about his plans to pardon some of the January 6th protesters, and less time on what Biden did. It's unheard of to me that a president could pardon so many criminals without requiring a summary of every criminal so that the public can see who these vicious people really are. And do they really, these aren't political criminals, these are violent criminals that he says are not violent. And it's very disturbing to me. So I'm just not optimistic that we're going to be that we're going to have a good 4 years. I think we're in for another rough 4 years. They're going to blame it on Trump, but it really is the Democrats and the media that are at fault equally with the Republicans.
I don't have anything to add to that, Ray.
All
That's what
right.
I'm hoping, and I
Well,
unfortunately agree with it.
yeah, and I just want to say we can end it now, but again, we're sorry that we missed a few weeks of podcasts. But Bill and I were both sick. We're senior citizens. Nobody cares about us, Bill. Nobody cares about senior citizens. They don't. And this virus going around targets seniors. Anybody over 60 that gets this, they're going to have a tough time. Um,
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
I'm lucky I'm able to fight it, but it was the worst I've felt in years. And I
Yeah,
feel
it's all I want to do is lay in bed. You
yes,
know,
that's exactly. It's a terrible virus, and they should be talking about that, but they're not. Anyway, I'm Ray Hanania,
I'm Bill Lipinski,
and
and this is Two Guys on Politics, and I'll let my buddy Ray Hanania close out the program.
I just want to say thank you, and we'll be back next week on January 24th. Actually, the 23rd. We should be back on schedule on Thursdays beginning next week. But Bill, thank you. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're doing well, recovering well, and me too. So everybody have a great week, and we'll talk to you later.
Take care.